We got a brand new vampire horror film brought to us by the Radio Silence team, and honestly, I was really excited to see this film, and I'm even more excited to talk about it with you all in today's video. But the question is this one of the better horror films so far this year, and is it worth checking out in theaters? Well, we'll be discussing that and much more in today's spoiler-free review of Abigail. But first, let's get the conversation going in the comments below. Let me know if you all were excited to see this film and if you had it circled on your calendar. But more importantly, once you've seen it, let's talk about things you either loved, liked, or didn't like about this film. And look, there's other stories that could be told in this universe. Would you all like to see more from Abigail? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. So let's jump right into it, man. Like I said, super excited to see this film. If you know me, you know how much I love horror movies, and I like Radio Silence. I've enjoyed Ready or Not, Scream 5, Scream 6, and let's just say they definitely have a trend that they like to stick to in their films, whether it be the idea of the larger ensemble cast or their characters find themselves isolated in situations trying to avoid being murdered, and they do a lot of horror comedies. And as it goes for this film, for the most part, they did a fine job with those tropes. I really enjoyed the idea behind this film, the fact that the characters are trapped in this mansion with a vampire. It's a super cool premise in my opinion. And speaking of that cast trapped in a house, you can clearly see that they're having fun and that this cast is just enjoying each other's company. And for the most part, I had fun with the cast and their crazy antics. Whether it's Giancarlo Esposito, who has a limited role in this film, but it's always great to see him in anything. RIP to Angus Cloud. He is not in this film enough, but he definitely has some fun moments. Speaking of fun, you have Kathryn Newton, who's having a blast in the role and has some of the more funny lines, as she delivered those lines in a very fun and entertaining manner. You also have Durand, who plays the muscle of the group, who's a very likable idiot. But then you have the standouts, who to me was definitely starting with Dan Stevens, who's such a great character and genre actor, whether it be him in things like Legion or The Guest, or even more recently in Godzilla x Kong. Just such an entertaining actor, and his character is definitely an a-hole, but he has some of the better moments in this film as well. You have Melissa Barrera, who I'm a big fan of since seeing her in The Heights, and I've enjoyed her role in the Scream films, and she is really solid in this role. Her character gets the most backstory, but also has stakes, and she has reasons why she wants to survive this chaotic night, and she has a very interesting dynamic as she plays a mom, which, by the way, being a parent in this film plays a very important role in the story. But the standout for me is the young actress who goes by the name of Alisha Weir. Now, she is the killer vampire ballerina, and she is excellent in this movie. She plays the role of an innocent girl who's been kidnapped, to seeing the switch of her becoming this killer hunter, crazy vampire. She does such a good job. The movie really does rely on her giving you those moments of, again, believing that she's an innocent girl, but then seeing the switch of her becoming a vampire. Like, she does such a good job in this film. Now, as a big fan of horror films, but also a big fan of vampire lore, it takes a while for the film to actually have its first kill, but once we get that first kill, there is tons of blood to go around this film, which I really appreciate, those more gory moments. And also, it being labeled as a horror comedy, it definitely leans more towards the comedy than the horror. But as far as the jokes go, I had a pretty fun time with a lot of the kind of quippy jokes, the back and forth with the different characters. But just to backtrack a bit, I always like to see, okay, how long into a horror film till we get our first kill? And it's about 35-40 minutes, but there's a chunk of that movie, like once we get our first kill, and from like 25-30 minutes on, like that is the best parts of this film, and I really thought that's when the film hits. But that brings me into my criticisms. First off, I don't blame the film for this part, but more so I blame the marketing. The one and only trailer I saw was the main trailer, and to me, it gave away the entire film. The first 35-40 minutes really only focused solely on the kidnapping plot and figuring out who this little girl was, but more importantly, who's this little girl's father. And it's that thing right there, again, knowing the marketing and knowing kind of the hook of the film, that there is a vampire ballerina that they kidnap, they spend so much time on like the mystery element of these characters are coming up missing, these characters are being devoured, like who's doing this? It made me feel as though this is one of those circumstances where, as an audience member, I'm 10 steps ahead of the characters, so I'm waiting for them to catch up to the plot. Like, I already know who's the killer, what's going on, but they're trying to catch up. And like I said, with me having seen the marketing, the first 30 minutes spent so much time on that it made it kind of uninteresting for me. It made a lot of the moments feel very predictable. Now, while I mentioned I had some good laughs to this film, I do wish that the film had a more prioritizing the idea of, yes, this is a funny situation, there's jokes to be had, but also there's a vampire in the house, and I feel like the horror elements were sidelined, give you jokes, and I wish it was the other way around. Now, as I mentioned, I'm a vampire fan, and I never apply the logic of the rules of one vampire story or lore of a vampire story and apply it to the film that I'm watching, because they have their own individual rules. But my issue with this film is the film doesn't spend enough time on developing the lore of vampires, and I won't give too much away, but let's just say the vampire lore to me was extremely underdeveloped and didn't really make a lot of sense at a particular point. Which, speaking of not making a lot of sense, this is 100% kind of a nitpicky thing, but it's something that definitely bothered me. I'll just say there's a moment in the third act that involves a time jump. And what I'm referring to when you see the film, you know what I'm talking about, but how in the hell do you go from the sunrise into nighttime within a couple of scenes? That, to me, again, it's a small little nitpick, but it's something that bothered me because I thought it was just so ridiculous. And it was more or less like, it was frustrating because it was like a plot thing. Like, you could have avoided something because we go from literally morning to night. And lastly, I wasn't a fan of the ending. I thought it was just way too silly, and I just could not stand the buildup of who's Abigail's father. And when you get that payoff, it just completely missed the mark for me. So those are my main pros, those are my main cons. Before I give you all my overall thoughts on my score of this film, I want to take this time to thank you all for making it to this point of the video. I really appreciate it. If you could, hit that thumbs up, share this video, but also share your thoughts on the film in the comments below, and also consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel. Overall, I really wanted to love Abigail, but at the end of the day, I thought that the film was just okay at best. This horror comedy prioritizes humor with its quippy jokes, whether than lean into the horrors of the situation, and avoided having any creative kills. Now, there's definitely a solid cast here, and it's highlighted by Melissa Barrera, Dan Stevens, and Alisha as this killer ballerina who I found to be extremely entertaining. But again, the trailer to me gave away all the main bits, all the twists and turns, and it took a while to become captivating because, again, the hook was given in the marketing. The third act to me left a lot to be desired, as the build up to a certain character was completely unnecessary and disappointing. Now, there's definitely fun to be had, and there's a lot of blood and gore, but that only goes so far. To me, I felt like they tried too hard to recapture the thrills and funs of Ready or Not, which to me is their best film, but unfortunately, it just didn't work for me this time around. So I'm going to give Abigail a solid 3 out of 5. Now, I'll be honest with you all, when I first saw this the other night, I was sitting at like a 2.5 out of 5, but I slept on it, thought about it a little bit more, and there is fun to be had. There are some cool, gory moments, and I did like the cast for the most part, and I had some funny moments with the film. So again, I am going with a 3 out of 5, which to me is a passing grade, and I would say it's worth checking out with a crowded theater. And look, by all means, everyone I've spoken to, most people enjoyed it a little bit more than me, and you guys might be in that same boat, but either way, let's talk about it in the comments below. And also, like I said, once you see the film, do you want more of Abigail? Do you want to see more things in this universe? I would be open to it, but again, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. You all are awesome. Hope you're staying safe, and again, I appreciate you all watching today's review, and I'll catch you all on the next video.